What kind of cat-scratching move is that? If you're surrounded by 10 thugs, what should you do? Easy. Just close your eyes, wave your arms around, and swing wildly. Or you could just flop down and kick your legs. That'll do the trick. After getting beaten, the thug said, "Look, a punch that doesn't even need to look." That guy fights without even looking at his opponent. So badass. The two of them took down all 10 thugs in no time. And just like that, they made a name for themselves. Mitsuhashi and Ito became the bosses of Nanjo High School. As for those thugs, they obediently became their underlings, having to greet the two every day. Their reputation for fighting also spread to neighboring schools. In Japan, every school has its own boss. The schools in the Chiba area are no exception. Let's take a few examples. The boss of Beni High School is named Imai. He's incredibly big and strong, but his mind is ridiculously simple. The queen bee of Siren Girls School is Kyoko, a sweet and cute girl, but with a fiery temper who can flip her mood in an instant. The most terrifying of all is Satoshi, the boss of a case school. He's vicious and ruthless, and has never lost a fight. By his side is his underling and strategist, Sagura, who is extremely cunning and devious. Most of the students at a case are basically delinquents. When it comes to overall fighting strength, a case is second to none. However, after the Yakuza started getting involved, the high schools gradually fell into danger as well. Let's start by talking about Mitsuhashi, the boss of Nanjo High School. Both Mitsuhashi and Ito are transfer students. Both of them wanted to make a name for themselves at their new school, so they decided to change their image. Mitsuhashi went all out with a head of curly blonde hair, while Ito looked just like a hedgehog. On their very first day, they almost got into a fight. Turns out, they had met each other before at a barbershop and found out that the other used to be just an ordinary student. If that secret got out, how would they ever manage to survive in this world? They sat in the back row, which was basically the spot reserved for delinquents. But as soon as Mitsuhashi sat down, some real thugs showed up looking for trouble. They saw him sitting at the last two rows of desks, so they decided to drag him out for a beating. Mitsuhashi wondered why no one came after Ito, since he was also sitting at the back. Turns out, Ito had just helped a classmate pick up an eraser, so he wasn't seen, and that's how he dodged a bullet. Mitsuhashi was surrounded by 10 people on the rooftop. Sagura was annoyed by his bright blonde hair, so Mitsuhashi quickly blurted out a few sentences in English. He said he was a high school student and a foreigner, which is why his hair was blonde. Just as Mitsuhashi was about to get beaten up, Ito suddenly appeared on the rooftop and told them not to bully the weak. Mitsuhashi immediately got angry. "Hey, I'm a 28th dan in karate, you know. How dare you call me weak?" Ito was dumbfounded. "Hey, I'm trying to help you here." The two of them argued for a good 10 minutes and even looked like they were about to start fighting each other. The gangsters were annoyed. "These punks don't take us seriously, huh? Fine, let's take them all down." A chaotic brawl broke out, and that's how the initial fight scene happened. Seeing everyone sprawled on the ground, the two were really surprised. "We're actually pretty strong, aren't we?" Mitsuhashi asked Ito if he played any sports. "Really good, actually. My grip strength is pretty strong too." Mitsuhashi said he was the same. The two decided to become partners, and together they rose to become the bosses of Nanjo High. Mitsuhashi's arrogant expression made the underclassmen tremble. The next day, Kyoko, the queen of Siren Girls School, came looking for Mitsuhashi and Ito. She had gotten into trouble with the Yakuza, so she came to ask them for help. At first, the two didn't want to get involved in any trouble, but seeing how cute and sweet Kyoko was, they immediately changed their minds and decided to help her. They disguised themselves as girls. Mitsuhashi put on a wavy blonde wig, while Ito transformed into a cute big-eyed girl. Both of them were eager to head out. When they faced the gangsters, the two acted all cute and coy, making the dumb guys drool with desire. Mitsuhashi charged at one of the guys, kicking him straight in the crotch, and the rest soon followed. "Watch me turn you all into eunuchs." But Ito wasn't used to Mitsuhashi's dirty fighting style, so the two of them got into an argument. Their friendship boat capsized just like that. The next day, Kyoko was kidnapped by the Yakuza. Mitsuhashi and Ito were still sulking, so Ito went to rescue Kyoko by himself. A gang leader, Ino, planned to get Kyoko hooked on drugs. Luckily, she could fight. She managed to escape and took down a few gangsters, but in the end, she was caught again and locked in a closet. Ito went alone to rescue Kyoko. He was surrounded by 7 Yakuza members. In no way was very strong. He dodged Ito's punch and then landed several blows in a row. Ito got back up and charged again, only to take a few more punches. Seeing this, Kyoko was deeply moved. She never expected someone would risk their life for her like that. After Ito left, Mitsuhashi also became extremely anxious. He stood up and told the teacher, "Sir, I don't have any appetite, so I'll head home early." The homeroom teacher played along. "Oh dear, that's a very serious condition. You should get to the hospital right away." Mitsuhashi pulled along a cart, which was filled with secret weapons. He kicked an empty can and by chance it hit Imai, the boss, right on the head. Seeing that Mitsuhashi was the boss from Nanjo High, Imai wanted to challenge him to a fight, but Mitsuhashi acted completely uninterested. Imai aggressively said, "So, do you want to throw down right now or what?" Mitsuhashi replied coldly, not fighting. Imai kept going. "Let's settle this at the park." Annoyed by Imai's stupidity and persistence, Mitsuhashi finally came up with a way to get out of the situation. "If you guys claim to be so tough, then go ahead and pull this cart. If you can pull it, I'll admit you're good." Imai immediately went to pull the cart. "Pulling the cart is nothing. Look, I can even walk around and dance over here." Mitsuhashi said if Imai could pull the cart all the way to Benny High, make it 3 times heavier, and then pull it back, he would admit defeat. Hearing that, Imai got annoyed. "I told you it's light as a feather." His underling kept hyping him up. "Boss Imai, you're so strong." After that, Imai ran off and disappeared. At the same time, Ito was still desperately holding on. He clung tightly to Inoue's waist, took every punch, then sprang up and landed a blow in return, finally making his opponent suffer a bit. Inoue was completely enraged, and Ito got beaten even worse. Kyoko's junior, Akemi, saw that Ito was about to reach his limit, so she hurried off to find Mitsuhashi for help. At this moment, Imai had dragged the car, which was 3 times heavier, back from Benny's school, but Mitsuhashi still refused to admit defeat, so he charged straight ahead. It turned out that Mitsuhashi had set a trap earlier. He told Imai to wait here, saying he would be back in a bit. Meanwhile, Ito was using all his strength to protect the cabinet. Just as Inoue was about to land a critical blow on him, smoke suddenly sprayed out from somewhere, obscuring everyone's vision. It was Akemi who had rushed in with a fire extinguisher and sprayed it forcefully, so the secret weapon on the cart was actually the fire extinguisher. Mitsuhashi leapt up and charged straight inside. He still did things his own way, grabbing the baseball bat and swinging it repeatedly at the gangsters. Whether it's dirty or not doesn't matter, as long as you win. Right at that moment, a guy with a knife tried to sneak up on Mitsuhashi. Ito rushed over and shoved him outside, and Mitsuhashi immediately followed up with a blow that knocked him out. The two teamed up once again, becoming Nanjo's strongest duo. Kyoko ran out from the closet and immediately hugged Ito, making Mitsuhashi so jealous his eyes nearly popped out. He jumped up onto the table, flinging flour everywhere to vent his frustration. Before leaving, Mitsuhashi and Ito told Ino 2 fake names, Ikabashi and Yoshimura, respectively. While they returned victorious, Imai was still foolishly standing there, waiting for Mitsuhashi to come back for a showdown. After that, the force behind Inoue came to find the boss of a Kaisei school, ordering Satoshi and Sagara to track down whoever defeated Inoue. In a small alley, Kyoko was fighting with someone. She grabbed her opponent's hair, throwing punches and kicks, but as soon as Ito saw her, she immediately turned into a cute little bunny. Kyoko quickly came up with the excuse that she was rehearsing for a play. Her best friend Akemi still wanted to keep fighting, and Kyoko switched faces in an instant, but as soon as Ito left, they were at each other again. Chihashi suddenly saw Riko being caught by a group of thugs on the street. Riko is a member of the Nanjo School's disciplinary committee, and her family runs a dojo, so whenever she gets involved, she has to take down a few punks. It was from that moment that Chihashi gradually started to fall for her. Seeing her caught, Chihashi immediately ran after them, and sure enough, saw Riko bullied by a group. He bought eggs and started throwing them at their faces. Suddenly, the whole scene turned chaotic with eggs flying everywhere, and every one of those guys ended up with egg all over their faces. One pulled a knife, tried to grab Riko, but Chihashi rushed in, kicked him, and pulled her away to escape. Outside, Chihashi realized Riko was hurt, got furious, and stormed back in for revenge. He lured the gang into a room, placed a metal bar in front of the door as a trap. The thugs didn't notice, ended up getting wrecked, falling flat on their faces. Chihashi then covered them with plastic bags and started beating them hard with a stick. Right at that moment, Riko rushed over to stop him, telling him that those guys were all students from the dojo. Turns out, her father's karate dojo was being challenged. Whichever side lost would have to shut down and leave. Each side picked 5 people to compete, so Riko wanted to test Chihashi's skills. Chihashi was furious at being set up, so he refused to help Riko's father. But just as he was about to leave, he ran into Imai. Imai had also come to make up the numbers, and since he liked Riko, he agreed to help. Chihashi mocked Imai, asking if he'd been waiting for him all evening. Right then, a long-haired uncle appeared. He was the homeroom teacher of Chihashi and Ito, and after hearing that Riko was in trouble, he came by to check on things. But in the end, Chihashi dragged him in to make up the numbers. Chihashi then encountered the group of troublemakers. They were extremely aggressive, so he decided to join the 5-person team. Chihashi stepped in to fight in Riko's place, but only on one condition. He had to defeat her first. Riko was very skilled at karate. With a single flick of her hand, she flipped Chihashi onto his back. Next, he swung both arms forcefully, but Riko took the opportunity to grab his arm. Chihashi swung his arm, breaking free. Riko then grabbed his arm, circled behind him, and locked him in a chokehold. Chihashi used all his strength to break free, but his shoulder remained tightly locked. He mustered all his strength, pressed Riko against the wall, raised his fist, and gently tapped her shoulder. Chihashi had defeated Riko. The final match finally took place, with Chihashi, Ito, Imai, Tanagawa, and the homeroom teacher representing Riko's team. The homeroom teacher was up first. He picked a scrawny opponent, planning to show off in front of the students. But he ended up getting knocked out in a single blow. Next up was Imai's turn. Before stepping into the ring, he grabbed Riko's hand to boost his spirits, then used a hook to defeat the scrawny guy, and followed up with a powerful punch to take down the second opponent. True to his reputation as the leader of Team I, Imai took down all 4 of the opposing team's members in a row, forcing them to play their final card, Kishimoto. The two sides charged at each other, and Imai took 2 high kicks head-on but still refused to go down. He kept pressing forward and took another punch. Kishimoto unleashed his signature move, the legendary kick, landing it right on Imai's temple and knocking him to the ground. Kishimoto spat on the ground, but unexpectedly, Ito managed to block it. Michihashi immediately grabbed a brush to scrub Ito's hand clean. Ito was furious, and as soon as he stepped into the ring, he threw a stormy punch. His punches were incredibly fast. Before Kishimoto could even react, he was forced to retreat repeatedly, even having to run out of the ring. The opposing coach helped calm Kishimoto down, telling him to fight using his own professional techniques. Kishimoto stepped back into the ring once more. Ito's powerful punches were completely blocked. The situation immediately turned around, but Ito stubbornly kept fighting without going down, even taking a high kick head-on. Just when it seemed the outcome was decided, Ito didn't fall at all. Instead, he seized the opportunity to land a punch that sent his opponent tumbling. Ito's reckless fighting spirit scared Kishimoto so much that he scrambled and crawled out of the ring. Ito threw a punch. The opposing coach hurriedly called for a stop, so Ito pulled his hand back. Anyway, Kishimoto was already sure to lose, but suddenly he launched a sneak attack, scratching Ito's eyelid open. Michihashi couldn't hold back. How dare someone mess with his sworn brother? Overly excited, he jumped high, his bald head hit the ceiling, and he ended up on the floor, not even in the fight yet, and already eating dirt. Ito, with his eyelid injured, still rushed out and started swinging wildly. He took a hit. When the second blow landed, Michihashi blocked it in time. Then, he threw a punch that sent Kishimoto flying. Now, all hope could only be placed on Michihashi. Whether they won or lost depended on this one move. The match began. Michihashi stomped hard on the floor, flipping up the wooden plank beneath his feet to block Kishimoto's view. And, charging forward with both legs, he simply kicked his opponent down. Once again, Michihashi showcased his unorthodox fighting style to perfection. The match ended, and Riko's dojo claimed victory. From then on, Riko started to develop feelings for Michihashi, even affectionately calling him San-chan. At school, the homeroom teacher started bragging all over the place, claiming that he was the one who led the students to victory in the match. But they had no idea that Michihashi and Ito were about to face danger. Satoshi, the boss of Akai-sei High School, along with his strategist Sagura, had already set their sights on the two of them. Look at this, when the delinquent students from both schools meet up, you can tell just by looking that a fight is about to break out. On one side is Imai, the troublemaker from N school, and on the other is Nimura from Akai-sei. Both sides started charging at each other. Seeing how strong Imai was, the other guy from Akai-sei quickly ran back to find the school boss, Satoshi. When Satoshi saw him, he just asked one question. "You left Nimura behind and ran away?" Then he stood up and kicked him. N school is a newly established school, and the students there are all younger than him, yet he still had the nerve to abandon his friend and run. Satoshi was furious and kept kicking his underling. At that moment, strategist Sagura stood up and went over to tell Satoshi to calm down, and together they took their underling to settle the score with Imai. On the way, they happened to run into Tanagawa, who always tags along behind Imai. Sagura immediately gave Tanagawa a kick. This scene was witnessed by Imai at just the right moment. "I'm the boss of Benny High. How dare you bully my underling?" Imai decided to teach Satoshi's group a lesson, not afraid to take on 4 people by himself. They headed into a small alley, ready for a fight, but Sagura was extremely cunning. He could attack from behind, and he definitely wouldn't miss the chance. He grabbed a stick and attacked Imai from behind. Imai was seriously injured, and his fighting ability immediately dropped by half. Imai was beaten badly by Sagura, and even mocked for being so weak yet still acting like the boss of Benny High. After that, Imai was knocked unconscious. Right at that moment, the athlete Miko Hashi made a spectacular landing. With just one move, Mikahashi took down Sagura. Sagura's 3 underlings rushed forward. Mikahashi is the boss of Nanzo High, and 3 people aren't even enough for him to bother fighting. Those 3 guys were quickly defeated. Imai slowly opened his eyes and saw Mikahashi helping him fight off the Akaiji school gang. He was so moved he almost cried. Turns out Mikahashi is actually a good guy. He decided to let Mikahashi have the person he liked. At that moment, the boss of Akaiji school, Satoshi, showed up. He asked who had beaten up Sagura. Imai told Mikahashi that Satoshi was no ordinary guy. His fighting skills were really formidable. Just one look from Satoshi was enough to make the thugs around him piss their pants in fear. Imai said he was the one who beat Sagura, but Mikahashi didn't give Imai a chance to play the hero. The 2 of them started arguing. Suddenly, Mikahashi unexpectedly threw a punch straight at Satoshi's face. He originally intended to knock Satoshi out with one punch, but to his surprise, Satoshi was completely unfazed. The scene was incredibly awkward. Satoshi coldly said, "Beg me in tears, and I'll let you live half dead." Imai and Mikahashi hurriedly ran for their lives, with the whole group from Akaiju High chasing after them. It took a while to catch up, but then the police arrived. If they got caught, they'd be expelled and have their heads shaved to become monks. Just thinking about it was terrifying. So Mikahashi came up with a plan. She pushed Imai into the water, then loudly shouted for help. "My friend fell into the water. I can't swim," she cried. The police didn't say a word and immediately jumped into the water to save them. Mikahashi skipped away, quickly leaving the scene. Satoshi, who had just been punched, seemed a bit dazed. He muttered, "Damn, that really hurt, you blonde bastard." His underling told Satoshi that the blonde guy was Mikahashi, the boss of Nanzo School. At this point, Satoshi also realized that the only one strong enough to defeat Sagura was Mikahashi. That day, Sagura was bullying a weak student, hoping to use the incident to lure Mikahashi out, but Kyoko happened to pass by and saw it. She was the boss of Siren Girls' School. After saying a few words, she rushed in and gave the Akaiju gang a beating. But since she was a girl, she couldn't fight back against Sagura and ended up getting her wrist grabbed by him. At that moment, Ito appeared. Kyoko immediately turned into a small, fragile girl. "I don't know, I just suddenly saw this scary group of people." Ito asked who was responsible for all the people lying sprawled out on the ground. Kyoko said it was that weak-looking boy who beat them up. The boy was about to deny it, but Kyoko threatened him, so he had to admit it over and over. Ito told Sagura to let go of Kyoko's hand, saying even he hadn't gotten to hold her hand yet. Sagura asked Ito if he knew Mikahashi. As soon as Ito heard that, he knew Sagura was here to cause trouble. He couldn't just ignore this matter. He told Kyoko to go ahead. Looks like another fight was about to start. But Sagura was a really despicable person. He ambushed Ito and then beat him up. The more Ito fought, the stronger he became, especially after getting beaten up. His fighting power doubled. He single-handedly defeated 7 people, and this fight drew Satoshi over. Satoshi was really strong, and since Ito was already badly injured, he couldn't win. But even so, he still managed to land a few hits on Satoshi. Satoshi wanted to kill Ito, but Sagura stopped him because Sagura wanted to take revenge himself. Satoshi turned to find Mikahashi. Ito was pinned by Sagura, and Kyoko shielded him. Sagura heartlessly used Kyoko to threaten Ito, forcing him to kneel and apologize. For the girl he loved, Ito gave up his pride, knelt, and admitted fault to Sagura. Right at that moment, Mikahashi arrived, leaping up and landing a kick that sent Sagura flying. At this point, Imai showed up to help. Seeing the situation turn against him, Sagura ran away to save himself. Mikahashi chased him. Sagura was about to play dirty, planning to ambush and attack Mikahashi from behind. But when it comes to underhanded tricks, Sagura is a rookie compared to him. Mikahashi circled around and landed a punch right in Sagura's face, knocking him to the ground. Meanwhile, the school boss Satoshi brought his gang to block the warehouse door, not letting Ito, Imai, and Mikahashi get out. Riko called her father, who is a martial arts master, to come help. Satoshi punched Riko's dad in the stomach, but he didn't budge at all. But right after that, he collapsed to the ground. The battle officially began. Mikahashi and Satoshi, the 2 school bosses, started fighting each other. Mikahashi took a few hits. He countered with a kick. Mikahashi fought with all his strength, showing incredible power. Both of their fists landed on each other's faces at the same time, making it impossible to tell who was winning or losing. Just as the fight reached its climax, the homeroom teacher and other teachers showed up. They disguised themselves as gangsters, trying to buy some time. When the police sirens started blaring, the Akaiji school gang quickly fled. The battle was over. Imai, the boss of Benny School, had been feeling constantly frustrated ever since he gave up on pursuing Riko. Tanagawa advised him to take the initiative and talk to girls, but to the girls, it seemed like they had just run into an idiot. Imai was extremely embarrassed, and just then, he happened to run into Mikahashi and Ito. The two of them burst out laughing, and every few steps they took, they turned back to laugh again, making Imai furious. At that moment, a girl called out to Imai. She handed him a pink letter, then shyly ran away. Imai opened it to read, and the letter was an invitation asking him out on a date. Imai was so happy that he fainted on the spot. When Imai went on the date, since he had never been in a relationship before, he invited Akemi to have an arm wrestling match. Unexpectedly, Akemi played along with him to let him show off his strength. He invited Akemi to a sumo wrestling match, and Tanagawa was left speechless by the sight. How could someone like Imai even have someone who likes him? Seeing this, Mika Hashi got jealous and wanted to break the two of them up. Ito and Riko were walking side by side when Kyoko happened to pass by and saw them. She got furious, thinking that Ito was too timing. So Kyoko wanted to challenge Riko, and the two of them faced off in the dojo. When girls fight, they're no less fierce than boys. Kyoko threw a punch, but Riko easily dodged it, and that's when she realized Riko wasn't just any ordinary girl. Kyoko swept at Riko's legs twice, then swung her arm for a punch, attacking so quickly that Riko was a bit overwhelmed. The two exchanged blows for several rounds, but in the end, Riko relied on her family's top-notch martial arts trick, flipped over and pinned Kyoko down. Kyoko then revealed the reason she wanted to fight Riko. It turned out to be a misunderstanding. Just like that, the two of them became friends. Miko Hashi ran off to sabotage Imai's date. He did a backflip, which left Akemi completely surprised. Imai, annoyed, also tried to show off with a somersault, but ended up with dog poop stuck to his back. Not only did Akemi not mind, she even praised Imai for being funny and interesting. Miko Hashi's second plan was to use a straw dummy to attack Imai's privates. Then, he even threw a manhole cover straight at Imai's head. But Imai still didn't react at all, remaining completely absorbed in his date. That day, Michihashi and Ito saw Akemi walking down the street arm in arm with another guy. The two of them felt sorry for Imai, but a second later, they burst out laughing like a couple of idiots. Especially when they saw Imai in a cafe, completely engrossed in sniffing Akemi's scent. He took a deep breath and ended up inhaling her hair right up his nose. The two who were hiding and watching almost died laughing. Akemi secretly went to meet a boy, and it turned out this was actually her real boyfriend. He was always getting bullied, forced to pay protection money, and if he didn't have any, he got beaten up. So, he convinced Akemi to pretend to get close to Imai, planning that after tricking Imai, they have Imai deal with those thugs. But this whole scene was witnessed by Michihashi, Ito, and Imai. After learning the truth, Imai was incredibly calm. Not only did he not blame Akemi, he even thanked her for giving him such beautiful memories. The next day, Akemi's boyfriend went to the abandoned factory. He couldn't find anyone to help, nor did he bring any money. Just as the three thugs from Kyou's school were about to beat him up, Akemi showed up. She brought money, handed it to the thugs, and demanded that they let her boyfriend go. Among the three thugs, one of them was infatuated with Akemi's beauty and wanted to harass her. But then Imai suddenly appeared and grabbed him by the nose. He was in so much pain that he dropped to his knees and begged for mercy. Imai took care of them with just a few punches. Akemi's boyfriend was so cowardly that he could only hide behind her. At this moment, Akemi felt even more guilty. Imai generously comforted her, saying, "Boys are born to protect girls, so you don't need to feel guilty." Then he walked away, leaving Akemi with an incredibly cool silhouette. After leaving, Imai cried loudly in front of Tanagawa and asked, "Why doesn't she go after me?" The next day, Kyou's gang held a grudge against Imai. It used Akemi to threaten Imai. Imai had no choice but to show up at the appointed place on time. Michihashi and Ito hurried to the abandoned factory. Meanwhile, the fight had started. Today, Benny High's leader was fighting over 20 people alone. As soon as the fight began, Imai took down several guys. You really have to admit, Imai's fighting skills are pretty top-notch. With every punch, Imai took out one guy. A single kick sent a whole group sprawling to the ground, then he sprang up and body slammed another opponent to finish him off. But after fighting for a while, Imai's stamina ran out. He couldn't take on the whole crowd alone. Quickly, he was attacked by the gang of thugs. Right then, a sudden punch landed squarely on a thug's face, forcing the group to fall back. Ito arrived just in time. It's in times of trouble you find out who your true friends are. Seeing this, Imai was deeply moved. At that moment, Michihashi also appeared on the second floor. Michihashi, holding a fishing net like a fisherman catching fish, threw the net over the group of thugs. Then he jumped down, and at that point, he could hit whoever he wanted. The thugs couldn't fight back at all. The fight finally came to an end. After the Kyou school's group regrouped, Satoshi and Sagara saw their underlings beaten badly and immediately became furious. This time, the grudge between them only deepened. Kyou must defeat Benny, and a major battle has been set in motion. What will Michihashi and Imai do now? This guy is a student from a Kyou school who had 14 of his teeth knocked out and was left lying by the roadside. He was discovered first by Michihashi and Ito from Nanjo School. Michihashi, afraid of being misunderstood, was about to leave, but as soon as he turned around, he saw Satoshi, the boss of Kyou, leading a group of underlings to surround the two of them. Michihashi, being extremely smart, immediately explained, "It wasn't us who did this. If you don't believe me, look, there's a challenge letter here." The content of the letter was telling Kyou not to get in their way. Their target was Michihashi and Ito from Nanjo. Satoshi immediately realized that this was the work of the group of 4 from Tokyo. He was extremely angry and muttered under his breath, "Those little punks from Tokyo dare mess with us, Kyou? They will make it back to Tokyo in one piece." Satoshi told Michihashi and Ito not to get involved with that group of 4 and let Kyou handle it. Michihashi suddenly remembered that earlier, Imai, the boss of Benny High, had also been badly beaten by that group of 4. Since Satoshi said so, Michihashi just went along with it. Michihashi bowed several times in quick succession. Seeing this, Ito was very annoyed and asked why Michihashi was being such a coward. Michihashi said Akai and Seo's gang were pawns to be sacrificed, telling them to wait and see. So why were these 4 from Tokyo so arrogant, daring to come to Chiba and stir up trouble? Did they really want to defeat local gangsters here? Let's go over the reason behind this. Michihashi's underling, Sagawa, is also the guy from episode 1 who wanted to fight Michihashi on the rooftop. Sagawa went to Tokyo for a visit, and while passing through an alley, he ran into Yutaka. Yutaka is a thug from Tokyo. As soon as Yutaka heard Sagawa say he was from Chiba, he got angry and gave Sagawa a serious beating. Sagawa's fighting skills were way too weak, so he got beaten up badly, and his wallet was stolen too. Yutaka said, "Don't you dare bring that pathetic countryside spirit here." Sagawa, impressed, shot back, "You bastard, Michihashi and Ito will take down scum like you." Just then, the police arrived, and Yutaka quickly took off, running to the gang's hangout spot. Turns out, Yutaka once had a friend who was beaten up by people from Chiba, so he hates everyone from Chiba. Although Yutaka is tough, he also has a boss. His boss is Kanu, a vicious, despicable, and aggressive man whose hobby is challenging the strong. Yutaka mentioned Michihashi and Ito's names to his boss. He only said it without thinking, but unexpectedly, Kanu wanted to go to Chiba to fight. He wanted to defeat all the thugs in Chiba. First, he would deal with the 2 named Michihashi and Ito. Just like that, the group of 4 from Tokyo headed to Chiba. As soon as they arrived, they ran into a thug from a Kyou school. He immediately pulled out a knife and walked toward the group of 4. None of the 4 were afraid at all. Goro kicked the knife away, and Kanu followed up with another blow. In just a few seconds, the Kyou thug was defeated. Yutaka stood in the back, watching. He was also very surprised. He didn't expect Kanu, Goro, and Yada to be that strong. The thug, wounded, ran back to the school to find the school boss, Satoshi. Satoshi was furious that someone dared to beat up his men. The strategist Sagara gathered people to go after them. The group of 4 changed clothes and went for a walk around town. Kyou's gang of thugs foolishly ran past without realizing anything. At that moment, the Tokyo group happened to run into Imai, the boss of Benny School, and Tanagawa. They immediately asked Imai, "Do you know Michihashi and Ito from Nanjo School?" Imai was good friends with Michihashi and Ito. He could tell these guys were up to no good looking for his friends, so he didn't bother to be polite with them. But this attitude ended up angering the 4 Tokyo guys. The 2 sides started fighting. Tanagawa was already weak in combat, and after just a few hits, he was defeated. Even though Imai was strong, he couldn't hold his own because the other side had more people. In a careless moment, he got a bucket slammed over his head. With that, no matter how the Tokyo group beat him up, he couldn't see a thing. This must be the most humiliating bullying of a school boss in history. Yutaka stood by and didn't get involved, feeling that this kind of dirty play was just too despicable. At this critical moment, Imai showed off his incredible intelligence. First method, take the bucket off your head. But the result would be like this. Just thinking about it, you can tell this way won't work. The second method is to just pick a random direction and charge forward as hard as possible. Maybe he could knock someone over, and that might turn the situation around. Thinking of this, Imai let out a shout, and then charged forward with all his might. Imai tumbled to the ground after his fierce, tiger-like charge, but it was all for nothing. The group of 4 burst out laughing. Imai crawled out of the bucket, ready to fight them, but the Tokyo group was too strong, and Imai was knocked down again. Kono pressed Imai to reveal Michirashi's whereabouts, but Imai refused to talk. Seizing the opportunity, he headbutted Kono, causing Kono's head to bleed. Furious, Kono hit him, demanding to know where Michirashi was. Imai lived up to his reputation as the boss of Benny High. He was tough and wouldn't talk no matter how badly he was beaten. Imai was beaten up pretty badly. After finishing the beating, the Tokyo group walked away and continued their stroll. Unexpectedly, they actually ran into Michirashi. Michirashi was on his way to the hospital to visit Sagawa when Yutaka started provoking him. He said he was the one who injured Sagawa. But Mitsuhashi was way better at provoking people than Yutaka. He said, "Wimps like you guys can't take me down. Let's settle this another day." Yutaka lost his temper and charged at Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi dodged 2 punches, but then Kono sucker punched him from behind. After that, the whole Tokyo crew started to rush in. Outnumbered, Mitsuhashi was kicked to the ground by Kono. Kono taunted him. "So that's all the country heroes got, huh?" Mitsuhashi was about to lose it when students from a case school showed up. Seeing the tables turn, Kono's group quickly ran off. Mitsuhashi went somewhere secluded, then collapsed on the ground, writhing. "It hurts so much. It hurts like hell." Turns out, Kono's kick earlier was really heavy. As a result, Kyoko's group happened to witness the scene. The moment Mitsuhashi saw some girls approaching, he tried to spring up, but couldn't manage it, so he limped away with his butt sticking out. Mitsuhashi lay in the park, leisurely recuperating. At that moment, Ito, Kyoko, and Riko came running over. This is something that can't be tolerated. They came here to discuss a plan. The 4 from Tokyo were on the run, and their leader, Kono, was a real pervert. He even felt excited about it. He said that the more people chased after him, the more thrilling it felt. But Iwata wasn't enjoying it like that. His teeth had been knocked out by Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi's punches were as hard as rock. At that moment, they ran into a thug from a case high. They knocked the thug out with a bottle of liquor. Then, they took out pliers and pulled out 14 of his teeth. After that, they wrote a challenge letter. Riko and the homeroom teacher went to the hospital Sagawa. Something unexpected happened. Riko's father arrives. He says he can't feel at ease letting his daughter and the homeroom teacher go to Tokyo alone together. What if the teacher turns out to be a pervert and tries something indecent? The homeroom teacher says that even now, there are still forbidden romantic relationships between teachers and students. The teacher is a handsome man, and with the charming beauty mark on his lip, it's only natural that his daughter would have a crush on him. Riko's father, exasperated, says, "Are you really a teacher? Isn't this the most outrageous teacher-parent duo on the planet?" Meanwhile, Mitsuhashi is at home when he receives a challenge letter from the Tokyo gang. The letter said, "Duel at 9 o'clock tonight under the bridge." Mitsuhashi and Ito head to the spot beneath the bridge. Ito had just showered, but his usually spiky hair was now flattened. The two of them waited and waited, but their opponents never showed up. Could it be they were just being messed with? Mitsuhashi had never been humiliated like this before. Ito stood beside him, making sarcastic remarks. Just then, someone came running up. It was Yutaka, the guy who had injured Sagawa. He hated the people from Chiba to the core. Mitsuhashi held back, while Ito decided to take on Yutaka by himself. The fight began, but after just a few seconds, it was already over. Yutaka could only bully weaklings like Sagawa. After just a few moves, he was defeated by Ito. The next day, Yutaka's face was bruised and swollen, and he suddenly showed up at Mitsuhashi's door. It turned out that last night, there was an internal conflict within the Tokyo group. Because Kono wanted to mess with Mitsuhashi and Ito, he didn't let anyone go to the duel location. But Yutaka thought that kind of trickery was too petty, so last night he went to the meeting spot by himself, and ended up losing. Yutaka was beaten up by his own gang and kicked out of the group. Mitsuhashi and Ito decided they would go deal with those guys. The two went to the Tokyo gang's hideout but were ambushed from behind by Kono. That was really despicable. At that moment, a Gaisu caught Garo from the Tokyo gang. Seeing that they were at a disadvantage, Kono and Iwata quickly made a run for it. At this point, Mitsuhashi and Ito also joined the chase. They chased desperately, one side trying to catch up while the other tried to escape. To buy himself time to get away, Kono kicked his own underling down the stairs. Mitsuhashi's group was dumbfounded. The boss of Tokyo didn't even care about the lives of his own men. Everyone kept up the chase. Kono hailed a taxi and, feeling safe, taunted them. "Goodbye, Chiba heroes. I'm not coming back, so just let it go." Kono left and disappeared into the endless sea of people in Tokyo. Ito realized that this time, there was no way they could find Kono anymore, but Mitsuhashi just sneered and said, "If I make a move, I'll definitely find him." At that moment, Kono was at school when he heard the news. Turns out, Mitsuhashi had posted an advertisement to track down Kono. He went all the way to Kono's school, and right in front of the teacher, he shook his hand enthusiastically and said, "I finally found you. I'm so happy." The three of them then went to a quiet place. Kono said, "How many people did you bring?" Mitsuhashi replied, "It's just the two of us." Kono said, "I'm not your average thug." He threw a punch, but only hit a piece of paper. Mitsuhashi tore up the paper. Kono didn't understand what was going on, but it turned out Mitsuhashi did that on purpose. This scene was witnessed by Kono's friends. Kono ended up being the one who tore up the picture of the puppy, and everyone thought he was cruel and heartless. Even when Kono tried to explain, no one believed him. Driven past his limit, he smashed a liquor bottle and shouted, "I'll kill you both. I swear I'll kill you too." Kono lunged forward, stabbing the broken bottle toward Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi dodged, grabbed his wrist, and twisted his arm back. Then, Mitsuhashi punched him, sending him flying. It was such a powerful punch that Konu was thrown 5 meters away. With that kind of strength, Konu immediately realized that even if he got up, he'd just get beaten again, so he figured he'd be better off pretending to be knocked out. But his poor acting skills were quickly seen through by Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi dragged him up and said, "Get going, and don't ever come to Chiba again." Mitsuhashi and Ito then headed back to school. Sagawa had been discharged from the hospital, but at that moment, a cruel teacher appeared at the school. An even greater danger was about to strike. A new week began in class 3-2. The homeroom teacher suddenly announced that Mitsuhashi would be on cleaning duty for a week. Mitsuhashi immediately agreed. The whole class was completely surprised. The school boss Mitsuhashi had never agreed to do cleaning duty before. At that moment, the homeroom teacher made another request. From now on, Mitsuhashi was not allowed to eat lunch early, or else he would have to run 100 laps around the field. Oh wow, Mitsuhashi agreed to the teacher's request again. The classmates were left gaping in astonishment. Since when did Mitsuhashi become so obedient to the teacher? While the classmates were still confused about what was happening, Mitsuhashi had already run up to give the homeroom teacher a shoulder massage. When the teacher said he didn't want to walk, Mitsuhashi immediately carried him on his back to the office. The homeroom teacher was absolutely delighted. On the way, even the pretty girls smiled at him. The school's most notorious troublemaker, Mitsuhashi, had been tamed. This was truly shocking news. The other teachers were completely astonished. Especially Mr. Sakamoto. He was full of admiration, secretly wondering when he would be able to win over Ito himself. But Sakamoto was a timid person. He had been bullied by others since he was a child. He felt that childhood was so much better. Back then, at most there was only one bully in the whole school, like John and Doryman, so all you had to do was avoid him. But now, there are thugs everywhere. Even just walking down the street, he's always afraid of running into trouble, and if someone bumps into him by accident, he doesn't even dare to speak up. The first thing he always says is sorry. It's true what they say, if you walk in the dark long enough, you'll eventually run into trouble. That day, after work, he was heading home when he accidentally bumped into a thug on the street. Sakamoto quickly apologized, but the guy deliberately made a scene and demanded 500,000 yen in compensation. Terrified, Sakamoto ran away as fast as he could. He ran so fast that, turning a corner, he crashed into a burly guy. This guy had a hot temper. He shouted, "You bastard, what do you think you're doing?" A heavy advertising sign fell, leaving a dent in the ground. The burly guy was left dumbfounded. If he hadn't been bumped into just now, if he had been just a second slower, he probably would have been crushed. At that moment, the thug who had been chasing after them arrived and started demanding compensation. Sakamoto said he didn't have any money. The thug immediately grabbed his tie, getting ready to teach him a lesson. At that moment, the burly guy grabbed the thug's hand and said, "If you dare, just try laying a finger on the man who saved my life." Right after that, the thug was knocked flat on the ground with a single punch. The burly guy invited Sakamoto out to eat. It turned out his name was Goda, and he worked for a debt collection company. But it just so happened that today the company closed down, so he was out of a job. At that moment, Sakamoto made him an offer to come to the school and intern at the student counseling office. As soon as he heard that, he got excited. After all those years hustling in society, he never expected he'd have the chance to become a teacher. He was absolutely thrilled, immediately accepted the offer, and was extremely grateful to Sakamoto. Sakamoto brought Goda to the school. The other teachers were not pleased when they saw this. A female teacher shouted loudly, "How can that guy be a teacher? He's a thug." She was knocked out on a spot by the PE teacher. Looking at how fierce he was, what if someone overheard? But the principal had already agreed to let him stay and work. After school, out in the schoolyard, Mitsuhashi and Ito had their gang carry a palanquin for their homeroom teacher. He stood on it looking extremely dignified and imposing. At that moment, Goda rushed over to stop them. Mitsuhashi said that this was all with the homeroom teacher's permission. Goda immediately got angry and threw a punch. As a result, Mitsuhashi blocked the punch with his own face. Just one hit was enough to injure Mitsuhashi. Everyone present was completely shocked. Riko stepped in to protect Mitsuhashi and said that violence was not allowed at school. Mr. Sakamoto said that this was Goda's first time at school, so he didn't know how to behave. Goda shouted loudly, "Obey me and you'll live, defy me and you'll die. Anyone who messes with Mr. Sakamoto will have to die." The students immediately obeyed. This time, with Goda backing him up, Sakamoto secretly felt delighted. As for Mitsuhashi, after taking a punch, of course he couldn't just let it go that easily. Mitsuhashi called Sagawa over and told him to take a big coconut up to the rooftop and throw it down at Goda. This teacher is incredibly strong. He can smash a coconut with his bare hands. Everyone was scared they peed. With fighting power, if you don't run now. Goda and Sakamoto ran up to the rooftop. The students had already disappeared without a trace. Goda said that as long as it was for Sakamoto, no matter what, he had to keep fighting. This time, Sakamoto was overjoyed. After returning to the classroom, Mitsuhashi saw the coconut. He wondered if that bastard was even human anymore. Mitsuhashi told Ito to give it a try. Then he tossed the coconut over to Ito. Ito gave it a light tap and it already hurt like hell. At that moment, Goda came over and warned Mitsuhashi and Ito to behave themselves and not cause any more trouble. Goda caught Sagawa, who was the one that threw the coconut, and punished him. The teacher shaved his head completely bald. From then on, at school, any student who disobeyed Sakamoto would have their head shaved, even the girls weren't spared. Just like that, the number of bald-headed people at school kept increasing. Mitsuhashi gathered 10 bald people together to summon the dragon god. Mitsuhashi excitedly rubbed all 10 heads at once, saying that his real hobby was much more than just this. Goda, in order to let Sakamoto go to work with peace of mind, decided to deal with the thugs who were always hanging around here first. The ones about to arrive were delinquents from Akarazora High, led by their bosses Satoshi and Sagara. Sakamoto told Goda that these were the worst thugs in this area. Goda told him not to worry, these guys would be taken care of right away. Goda prepared himself thoroughly and charged forward. The first guy was knocked down, the second one was floored with an uppercut. Even when two of them rushed at him together, it didn't faze him at all. Sakamoto stood behind, watching with satisfaction and nodding in approval. Goda was absolutely ruthless. Almost every opponent went down with just one move. Boss Satoshi said that he had met Goda before. Goda was a member of the Hakiokusia gang, and his reputation was well deserved. All the Akarazora underlings had been defeated, so Boss Satoshi stepped in himself. Seeing Satoshi's aura, Goda said, "You're the boss of Akarazora, aren't you? You look tougher than the boss of Nanjo. He took one punch from me and still hasn't dared to make a peep since." Sagara immediately guessed that the person Goda was talking about was Mitsuhashi. Satoshi launched an attack, rushing forward and throwing punches non-stop, even adding new strikes, landing blow after blow on Goda. Right at that moment, both of them threw punches at the same time, each landing a hit on the other's face. Just then, Sagara suddenly jumped in and struck Goda in the eye. Sure enough, only dirty tricks can quickly end a fight. Akarazora and his group hurriedly ran away, leaving Goda standing alone in the middle of the street. Feeling that teaching those guys a lesson still wasn't enough, Sakamoto went to Riko's dojo, wanting to recruit Riko to his side. Because Mitsuhashi liked Riko, he planned to defeat the enemy from within, but of course Riko could never do such a thing. The next day, Mitsuhashi's parents came to see the homeroom teacher to settle the score. What on earth is going on here? It turned out that not long before, Mitsuhashi's father had run into Mitsuhashi's homeroom teacher at a massage parlor. The teacher had something to hold over Mitsuhashi's father. He said he never expected to run into him at a place like that. Not wanting his wife and son to find out, he agreed with the homeroom teacher's request to have Mitsuhashi serve as the teacher's servant for a week. He even promised Mitsuhashi that after this was over, he would buy him Seiko's album. A few days later, Mitsuhashi's father finally realized that the person who had come to the massage parlor before was the homeroom teacher, so he confessed everything to his wife and son. Now Mitsuhashi doesn't know how he's going to get Seiko's album. He decides to strike back at Goda. Meanwhile, on another front, Goda runs into Imai, the boss of the rival school, on the street. Imai was completely innocent, hadn't done anything, and suddenly got beaten up. Imai came up with a clever way to deal with Goda. "Look, what's that over there?" But in the end, this method was completely useless. Mitsuhashi decided to officially fight back. He used a chisel to make a hole in a coconut, then put powder inside. At that moment, Riko dragged a girl in. Turns out Goda had gone so far as to cut off her long hair, giving her a buzz cut. Ito was furious when he saw that. He threw a punch that shattered the coconut. It seems the hardness of Ito's punch depends on how angry he is. The teachers at school tried to stop Goda, telling him not to be so cruel and excessive. Right at that moment, Goda instinctively reacted by smashing a coconut with his bare hands. At this time, there was powder inside the coconut. The flour inside the coconut flew into Goda's left eye, blinding him. Just then, another coconut came flying at him, and he smashed it again. This time, the powder flew into Goda's right eye, and he couldn't see anything at all. Embarrassed and furious, Goda lashed out with a kick, sending a flower pot flying. Goda turned and struck toward the homeroom teacher. Right at that moment, Mitsuhashi suddenly appeared and delivered a super cool kick, hitting Goda on the head. After that, Ito also rushed in and swept Goda's legs with a kick. For the final move, Mitsuhashi grabbed a coconut, let high into the air, and then smashed it down hard. Goda was knocked out. Without his protector, Sakamoto immediately became timid, pretended to have lost his memory, and acted as if nothing had happened. After that, Goda was fired for his violent behavior at school. After school, the female gang leader Kyoko came to find Ito, saying she was afraid Ito would also get his head shaved. Ito replied, "How could I give up such a handsome hairstyle?" The two of them started acting all lovey-dovey. Just before leaving, the adorable Kyoko suddenly changed her attitude. Meanwhile, at Akarazora School, a new student teacher arrived, and it turned out to be Goda. A voice rang out, "Hello, I'm Goda. I hope everyone will help me out." The school bosses Satoshi and Sagara looked up. Goda flashed a smug smile. Enemies always cross paths. Another battle was about to begin. Nanjo's boss, Mitsuhashi, suddenly spotted Imai's boss sneaking into his school. He stuffed something into Riko's locker, then quickly ran off. Could that kid really be trying to compete with me for Riko? Mitsuhashi opened Riko's locker and found a letter inside. Oh man, it really was a love letter. In the love letter, it said that Riko shouldn't like Mitsuhashi, that dumb golden-haired monkey. It also mentioned a date set for 4 o'clock in the afternoon, in front of the restroom at the park. Looks like Imai still can't get over Riko. After reading it, Mitsuhashi angrily tore the letter to pieces and cursed, "Idiot, what an idiot." At that moment, Ada walked over, and Mitsuhashi hurriedly ran off, but the shredded pieces of the letter were still seen by Riko. Mitsuhashi went to the meeting spot, planning to ambush Imai at the restroom and humiliate him when he arrived. Mitsuhashi saw a baseball bat outside the door and casually picked it up. Mitsuhashi walked into the restroom, completely stunned. Oh my god, there was someone lying motionless in the restroom. He walked over and kicked the person a few times, but there was still no reaction. Could he be dead? Is he really dead? Just as Mitsuhashi was about to leave, he ran into Ito and Riko. The two were terrified, thinking that Mitsuhashi had killed someone. Ito scolded Mitsuhashi, asking if he couldn't have gone a little easier. Mitsuhashi insisted it wasn't him, but the baseball bat in his hand was clearly the weapon. Moreover, there were bloodstains on the bat. At that moment, Imai arrived at the meeting spot with flowers, and was also shocked to see the body on the ground. Seeing the uniform, he realized it was the first year from Benny High. Imai said that even though he didn't know what happened, Mitsuhashi shouldn't have killed him. Mitsuhashi hurriedly explained, "I already told you, it wasn't me." At that moment, the sound of police sirens could be heard outside. Imai told Mitsuhashi to run quickly, but Ito and Riko said, "If you didn't do it, then don't run." Mitsuhashi thought for a few seconds, but still decided that of all the 36 strategies, running away was the best. Mitsuhashi headed home, but on the way, he ran into police officers chasing after him. Mitsuhashi could only run for his life. He hurriedly jumped into a bush and managed to escape this time. Mitsuhashi wanted to hide at Riko's house, but as soon as he got there, he saw the police already present. Riko's father even said that Mitsuhashi was always getting into fights, and he hoped they could catch Mitsuhashi and throw him in jail. At this point, Mitsuhashi had become a wanted criminal. He couldn't even go home, and his stomach was growling with hunger. What was even scarier was that it was already dinner time. He went to find out where that delicious smell was coming from, but he ended up being mistaken for a pervert by an auntie, who dumped a whole basin of dirty water on him. The police heard the commotion and came running again. Mitsuhashi hid under a secluded bridge. He wrapped himself in a mat and sat in the wind. Even now, he still couldn't understand how all of this had happened. Just as he was doubting his life, he saw a spirit flame. Mitsuhashi was so scared he crawled on the ground. Then, as soon as he looked up, he saw the student who had died in the bathroom. He had come to claim his life. Terrified, Mitsuhashi shouted, "It wasn't me. It wasn't me. I didn't kill you." Seeing that the student still wouldn't leave, Mitsuhashi knelt on the ground. "I'm begging you. Please spare me." At that moment, the soul fire appeared again. Mitsuhashi was so scared that he burst into tears, promising he would never do anything bad again. Just then, mocking laughter echoed around him. He turned around and saw it was Imai and Tanagawa's group. Behind them were 2 police officers, and also the high school student who had died. All 3 of them were just actors. It was only then that Mitsuhashi realized he had been tricked by Imai. Turns out, everything had been a trap set up by Imai. Mitsuhashi was always mocking Imai, but this time, Imai had won. Imai happily patted Mitsuhashi on the head, then cheerfully took a commemorative photo, and even mocked Mitsuhashi for being a fool. Imai laughed loudly and then walked away. Mitsuhashi's eyes were still brimming with tears, still haunted by what had happened. Imai could never have imagined that his stupid game would be something he'd regret for the rest of his life. The next day, Mitsuhashi went to school, but he was still like a lost soul. As for Imai, he turned the prank he played on Mitsuhashi into flyers and went around spreading the word about how stupid Mitsuhashi was. But Mitsuhashi is someone who always gets revenge. Riko told Imai that his face clearly showed signs of bad luck, and that the word death was written right on his face. She told Imai to get out of there quickly if he wanted to stay alive. Mitsuhashi is someone who could design the perfect murder. As soon as they heard that, both Imai and Tanagawa started to feel uneasy. Tanagawa, with his spiky hair, tried to style it like Ito's to trick Mitsuhashi. On Mitsuhashi's side, after being treated with hypnosis by the teacher, he finally regained his senses while sitting on the rooftop. That's right, it was all because of that bastard Imai. The plan for revenge officially began. Imai didn't believe that anything bad would happen. He walked boldly down the main road. Suddenly, a flower pot fell down, almost sending him to the afterlife. He looked up and saw that it was Mitsuhashi who had thrown it down. Imai, furious, ran upstairs to settle the score with Mitsuhashi. But as soon as he got there, Mitsuhashi was already downstairs. He was as fast as lightning. After that, Imai saw 3 kids by the roadside watching something. He walked over to take a look. Oh crap, his picture was stuck on a pile of dog poop. The kids even asked in surprise, "Is that the king of stinky poop?" That's right, It's him, the king of stinky poop. Imai was officially pissed off. At that moment, Michihachi threw a can from behind, then took off running as fast as he could. Imai turned around and saw the can hit the head of the boss, Ake-san, whose name was Satoshi. He was set up by Michihachi and ended up being chased by more than 20 of Ake-san's thugs. At this point, Imai also understood what it meant to not be able to explain yourself even if you tried. He was wrongly accused, but no one would listen. He ran away in a miserable state. At that moment, Michihachi appeared. Imai chased after Michihachi. He chased all the way to an abandoned high-rise building. He searched for Michihachi's figure, shouting loudly, "If you're scared of me, you'd better apologize, Michihachi." But when he turned around, he suddenly realized that this door didn't have a handle, so how was he supposed to open it? Michihachi laughed loudly from outside. The door to the room had been tampered with. This time, Imai couldn't get out. Imai ran to the window to look out. It was the 4th floor. If he jumped, even if he didn't die, he'd be messed up for sure. At that moment, Michihachi appeared beside him and said, "If I get bullied, I'll pay it back 100,000 times over. Just stay here and wait to die." Imai was terrified, using all his strength to scream for help. "Is anyone there? Someone's been kidnapped and locked up, help me." But the place was deserted, not a soul in sight. It was truly a case of crying out to the heavens with no answer, calling to the earth with no reply. Michihachi was extremely pleased with himself and said, "I'm heading home now." Imai gave in, begging Michihachi to let him go, but then he heard screams coming from the next room. Michihachi walked over to the window and said, "Oh no. To prevent any mishaps, I poured concrete over all the doorknobs in this house. This time, you can't leave either." Imai burst out laughing and said, "Michihachi, you're such an idiot. You walked right into your own trap. People call that unlimited stupidity." As time passed, the two of them started looking for ways to survive in the locked room. Imai was starving, so Michihachi took out a can of fish. Turns out, he wanted to show off and eat fish in front of Imai, but he forgot to bring a can opener, so he couldn't eat it. At that moment, Imai took out a knife. He was afraid that the scoundrel Michihachi would eat it all by himself after opening the can, so he threatened to throw the knife away. Michihachi's eyes welled up with tears as he sadly said, "It's really sad that you don't trust me. In that case, I don't need this anymore." Michihachi threw the can of fish down the stairs. Imai thought that was such a waste. Michihachi said, "If we can't trust each other, we might as well starve together." Imai felt ashamed. "Sorry, Michihachi." To prove that he trusted Michihachi, Imai handed the knife over to him. But unexpectedly, Michihachi hooked a fishing line onto the can, then pulled the can back up. Seeing that, Imai was furious. Michihachi used the knife to open the can, then ate heartily right in front of Imai. Imai was so angry that he burst into tears. He saw that the can of fish had been eaten up, and the empty can was thrown away. Michihachi laughed out loud, but Imai wasn't about to give up either. He took out some chewing gum and ate it right in front of Michihachi, taking only tiny bites each time and savoring how delicious it was. Michihachi started begging, but Imai didn't care at all. At this point, Michihachi figured he'd tormented Imai enough. He quietly turned the doorknob and slipped out to go home for dinner. Turns out, Michihachi had tricked Imai again. At that moment, Imai still had no idea what was going on. The chewing gum sucked all the moisture out of him, his throat felt like it was on fire. He dreamed that Rico turned into an angel and brought him water. Just like that, Imai was locked in all night. By the afternoon of the next day, could he really end up starving to death here? At this moment, Michihachi appeared again, having put on makeup to look like someone on the verge of starving to death. Imai asked Michihachi, "Why didn't you answer when I called you? I thought you had already starved to death. What are we supposed to do now? I'm about to die of thirst." Michihachi then tried to convince him that drinking urine could help quench his thirst. People in places where water is scarce do the same thing. He even kindly handed over a cup. Seeing Imai about to drink urine, Michihachi on the other side tried hard to hold back his laughter. But Imai was disappointed and said, "I already peed this morning, and I haven't had water for a long time. I can't pee at all. Not a single drop comes out." Imai, exhausted, leaned against the wall. Michihachi was sitting there eating, when suddenly he came up with a mischievous idea. "Leather shoes seem edible too." "That's right, shoes are made from buffalo hide, so they should be edible." Imai believed Michihachi and opened his mouth to bite into the shoe. After struggling to chew and failing, he shouted, "This stinks." Michihachi laughed, he nearly peed his pants. At that moment, Kyoko and Akemi walked by. Imai yelled like a banshee, but the two girls didn't hear a thing. Meanwhile, Michihachi was next to him, waving goodbye to them. Seeing that, the two girls just kept walking. After that, Michihachi handed the banana peel to Imai. "Eat this to stave off hunger." "I knew it. Deep down you're a good guy." Imai was touched, he cried, taking the banana peel in his mouth. His face lit up, delicious. "I'll eat the peel," Michihachi burst out laughing. Michihachi then handed over a handful of straw and asked Imai if he wanted to eat it. "Of course I'll eat it, all animals eat straw." Imai took it and put it in his mouth. Michihashi secretly snapped a photo of him. Unexpectedly, the taste of straw is actually pretty intense. Michihashi couldn't hold back his laughter anymore and kept banging his head against the wall. Then he handed over some eggshells, saying it was for calcium. Imai immediately took them and put them in his mouth. By 7 in the evening, Michihashi pulled out his ultimate move again. He took a big iron rod and used a fishing hook on it to try to hook the rope downstairs. He told Imai that as long as they could hook the rope, they'd be saved. Michihashi pretended he didn't have enough strength and told Imai to handle this heavy task. Imai said, "Piece of cake, leave the heavy stuff to me." But man, that iron rod must have weighed 100 kilos, and it wore Imai out like a dog. After trying over and over, he finally managed to hook the rope up. But right after that, Imai's expression changed immediately. He saw Michihashi use scissors to cut the fishing line. Turns out, Michihashi could get outside all along. Imai was so mad he almost passed out. At this point, Michihashi's plan for revenge was complete. Meanwhile, behind the building, Michihashi used the same trick to mess with Tanagawa. Michihashi took photos of their ugly moments and posted them everywhere. Imai was mocked by everyone. This was the price to pay for daring to mess with Michihashi. Time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, Michihashi and Ito were already seniors. By now, everyone in the schools around Chiba knew their names. A homeroom teacher asked Michihashi which university he wanted to apply to. Michihashi said he wanted to get into the University of Tokyo and become the boss there. The new first-year students were extremely excited when they saw Michihashi. After all, Michihashi was the top dog. Especially the girls, they couldn't stop praising Michihashi for being both smart and handsome. So Michihashi immediately broke into a dance. His fan base kept growing bigger and bigger. As for Ito, who was officially Michihashi's companion, he didn't like to show off, so people called him boring. This made Michihashi feel extremely smug. Right at that moment, a new student named Kitabashi suddenly appeared. He wanted to challenge Michihashi. He said, "It was tough enough to become the boss in middle school. Now that I'm in high school, I don't have the patience to start all over again." He threw a can at Michihashi. Michihashi easily dodged it. Seeing the new student provoke him, of course Michihashi wasn't going to just let it slide. But Riko stopped him because there were a lot of fans watching at that moment. Riko signaled for Michihashi to speak. Then Michihashi repeated after Riko, "Sorry, but I'm not a kid like you. If you want to show off, go right ahead." That line was seriously cool. It made the new students admire Michihashi even more. Voices of admiration rang out from outside, "So cool." As expected of a third-year senior, so much more mature. Michihashi walked away, while Kitabashi was held back by others. At that moment, 3 new students were standing at the school gate. They were a group of 3, who were also big shots back in middle school. They came to challenge Michihashi. Kitabashi, who was just there, also got beaten up and ended up sitting on the ground, saying that the group of 3 was really strong. At that moment, in the school hallway, there was someone holding an iron baseball bat. He asked, "Who's the boss of this school?" This guy was wearing a white helmet. He was a new student at Nanyo High, looking to meet the school boss. Seeing that no one answered, he swung his bat and hit the guy next to him. On the stairs, Sagawa had the bad luck to run into the guy with the helmet. Sagawa refused to say who the boss was, so he got beaten up too. The guy with the helmet was furious. He grabbed a girl who looked like Riko, pinned her against the wall, and interrogated her about who the school boss was. The girl stammered and said it was Riko, a third-year student. The helmeted guy wondered, the school boss is a girl? Then he went to Riko's class to look for her, but she wasn't there at the time. At this moment, Riko's homeroom teacher, Ms. Yamaguchi, appeared. She knew someone was looking to cause trouble for Riko. So she put on a kendo outfit and challenged the guy with the helmet. But her action was like throwing an egg at a rock, completely futile. In the end, she was injured and had to be hospitalized. Michihashi and Ito went to the hospital to visit Ms. Yamaguchi. Their homeroom teacher was taking care of Ms. Yamaguchi, whom he secretly had feelings for. The homeroom teacher was extremely angry. He ordered Michihashi and Ito to deal with that damn guy. Ms. Yamaguchi spoke to the 2 of them. The guy with the helmet was looking for Riko everywhere. He wanted to defeat Riko. That's why she stepped in to protect Riko, and ended up getting beaten. Michihashi just heard that it was about Riko. Still annoyed, Michihashi pretended not to care and turned to leave the hospital. Back at school, the guy with the helmet finally found Riko. The 2 of them rushed at each other and started fighting. Riko kept dodging. She didn't fight back. She explained that she wasn't the school boss, and that there must be some misunderstanding. But the guy with the helmet didn't believe her. On the contrary, he thought Riko was no ordinary person, and even said she truly lived up to being the boss of Nanjo High. Riko didn't want to fight him, but instead got kicked in the stomach by him. To prove she wasn't the strongest, Riko loudly mentioned the name Michihashi. But Michihashi didn't show up at all. The guy with the helmet got ready to attack again. Right at that moment, Ito jumped down from the second floor and stood in front of Rico. The guy with the helmet looked at Ito's hairstyle and shouted, "Come on, Pinecone Head." As soon as Ito heard that, he got furious. "How dare you call me Pinecone Head?" Ito threw a super powerful punch at his helmet. With just one punch, the helmet guy was knocked to the ground and temporarily passed out. But just a few seconds later, the helmet guy sneak attacked Ito from behind. Ito immediately took a few hits and passed out. The helmet guy turned to look at Rico, about to make a move. He was raising his baseball bat. Right at that critical moment, someone leapt down from above and kicked the helmet guy away. He fell to the ground. Turns out, the boss of the girls' school, Kyoko, had arrived. Akemi and Kyoko each landed a move and took down the helmet guy. Ito and Kyoko were about to show off their lovey-dovey act. At that moment, the helmet guy tried to sneak up on Kyoko from behind, but Ito landed a punch on him. After that, he really passed out on the spot. Early the next morning, the homeroom teacher gave an announcement. He suddenly punched the blackboard. "That helmet-wearing guy has called in sick today. If any of you see him, report to me immediately." Turns out, the helmet guy had caused trouble again. He beat up 7 or 8 students from Anjo, then tied them up on the rooftop. He even sent a challenge letter to Riko, saying that if she refused a one-on-one fight, a few people would get hurt every day. The homeroom teacher was furious. "How dare he hit Ms. Yamaguchi like this? I'll get revenge for her." But the PE teacher, who looked a bit like a gangster, was standing nearby and advised the homeroom teacher to win people over with kindness. Ito went to find Mikazuki, hoping Mikazuki would go with Riko. But at that moment, Riko had already gone alone to the abandoned warehouse. The guy with the helmet had been waiting there for a long time. The two of them started fighting. The helmeted guy swung his baseball bat. Riko threw a kick, grabbed the opponent's arm holding the baseball bat, then delivered a back kick. He took the hit and fell to the ground. Even after getting hit, he got back up and charged at Riko. Riko grabbed his arm and pulled him down to the ground. After that, Riko kept hitting him with elbows and knees, added a flying double kick, and finally stomped on him. The helmeted guy was a coward. Seeing he couldn't beat Riko, he pulled out a knife. Riko quickly dodged. He got up and picked up a baseball bat, holding the bat in one hand and the knife in the other, then crazily attacked Riko, saying, "I got both of these." The helmeted guy charged forward, swinging the bat, but Riko blocked it. Then he immediately slashed with the knife. Riko kicked him away. He charged at her again, and this time Riko couldn't dodge in time. She got hit by the bat. Riko was in so much pain she couldn't get up. The guy in the helmet laughed. Even the boss lady got taken down. "Huh? Now let me send you to the afterlife." Just as the guy in the helmet was about to strike, at that critical moment, he was kicked away. Riko looked up and saw that it was Mikazuki who had saved her. Then Mikazuki arrogantly said, "You piece of trash, don't you dare lay a hand on my girl." "Your girl?" The guy in the helmet, lying on the ground, asked, "Who are you?" Mikazuki replied, "I'm the strongest man in all of Japan." The guy in the helmet suddenly got excited. But he also remembered the rumors going around. The blonde Mikazuki is actually the real boss of Nanjo. "Looks like if I take you down, all the schools in this area will bow at my feet." The guy in the helmet attacked Mikazuki, but Mikazuki quickly grabbed an iron rod and smacked him with it. The guy in the helmet took the hit and slumped down onto the ground. Luckily, he was wearing a helmet, otherwise that one blow would have sent him to meet his ancestors. "Don't you like wearing helmets?" A big can full of chili powder was dumped all over the helmet guy's face. Even scarier, Mikazuki taped the helmet shut with duct tape. Mikazuki and Riko left, while Ito and the homeroom teacher came to rescue the helmet guy. They took off his helmet, and finally, his face was revealed. The homeroom teacher told him that he had been expelled from Nanjo for attacking a teacher. The helmet guy shouted loudly, "Mikazuki is a despicable coward." A week later, Mikazuki, Ito, and Riko were walking down the street when they ran into Benny's boss, Imai. Imai and Tanagoa were covered in bandages, and it turned out that the helmet guy had transferred to their school. He dared to challenge the boss's position, so we gave him a gentle lesson, Ito said. In the end, who taught him a lesson? Weren't you two beaten up as well? Imai said, "We didn't get beaten up. The helmet guy hit a teacher, so he got expelled again. We were just trying to break it up." Meanwhile, at Akai Middle School, the helmet guy showed up to challenge the boss, Satoshi. Turns out, he had transferred to Akai Middle School. He swung a baseball bat at Satoshi. Satoshi caught the bat with one hand. Satoshi's strength was terrifying. He spun the helmet guy around and then threw him out. Satoshi handed him over to his underlings to deal with. After they were done with him, the Akai Middle School gang burst out laughing. At that moment, the strategist Sagura arrived. He wanted to seize Satoshi's boss position and then declare war on Mikazuki and Ito. A big battle was about to break out. Early that morning at Akai Middle School, the strategist Sagura came to find Satoshi and said, "I hope you can take out those two kids from Nanjo High." Satoshi wasn't happy at all. What do you mean? Are you giving me orders? Sagara said he just hoped that when Satoshi became boss, he wouldn't leave a stain on the school's history. Satoshi said, don't get too cocky or I'll deal with you myself, you bastard. When I'm in the mood, I'll take care of Mikazuki and Ito myself. Without my orders, you're not allowed to act recklessly. At that moment, Satoshi dragged out Ryu, who had just been beaten up. Ryu said he hadn't done anything, but he was beaten to the state by dozens of Nanjo's men, and among them was Ito. Satoshi didn't believe it, because he knew Ito wasn't that kind of petty person. But Ryu started to stir things up even more, saying that Ito didn't respect Akai at all. Hearing that, Satoshi immediately got angry and went to find Ito to settle the score. As soon as Satoshi left, Sagara smirked to himself. That guy is so simple-minded, it's easy to fool him. Turns out, Ryu's suffering was all part of a scheme devised by Sagara. Mikazuki, Ito, and Riko were walking down the street. Ito was about to go look for Kyoko, so he happily skipped away. As soon as Ito split off on his own, he was blocked by Satoshi. Satoshi shouted loudly, "You cowardly scum." Then he ordered a dozen of his underlings to charge at Ito immediately. Ito had no idea why he was being attacked. Ito rushed up to Satoshi and said he wanted to fight him one-on-one. Satoshi, who was considered a fair player, agreed to a one-on-one fight with Ito, but insisted that both of them were steel knuckle dusters. This is a weapon commonly used in duels, designed to increase the power of a punch. Satoshi threw a punch, and the wall caved in, leaving a hole. If that punch landed on someone's face, they'd definitely lose 5 or 6 teeth. The two of them stood 10 meters apart, then closed their eyes, relying only on their hearing to fight. Ito knew the place was full of people. It would definitely be unfair for Kai to touch you, but you still agreed. The official battle begins. Ito closed his eyes and started throwing punches everywhere, relentlessly punching as he moved forward. The thugs from Akizo school standing nearby kept mocking him. Ito couldn't tell which way he was facing, and ended up punching the wall. He calmed himself down and started to analyze the situation. But the voices from outside kept distracting him. Finally, Ito sensed Satoshi's position and threw a powerful punch in that direction. But Satoshi played dirty, opened his eyes, and dodged Ito's punch. Now it was Satoshi's turn to attack. He kneed Ito in the stomach. Ito fell to his knees in pain. At this point, he guessed that Satoshi had opened his eyes, but it was just a hunch. If Satoshi hadn't opened his eyes, that would mean he had lost. Satoshi kicked Ito again. Ito still refused to open his eyes, got up, and kept fighting. Ito, furious, threw all his strength into punching the air. At that moment, Satoshi suddenly remembered that he used to be just as foolish, once bullied and mocked by more than 20 thugs. Did Satoshi ever fight with his eyes closed? Thinking of this, Satoshi threw a punch that sent Ito sprawling to the ground. He told Ito to open his eyes and see just how foolish he was being, but Ito stubbornly refused to open his eyes. I can't be the one to break the rules. Ito's reaction made Satoshi extremely dissatisfied. He furiously kicked Ito. Ito gritted his teeth, shouted, and threw a punch at Satoshi, but still couldn't land a hit on him. Satoshi was a bit surprised. Why was Ito so stubborn? Just as Satoshi was caught off guard, Ito's punch landed squarely on his face, then hit his calf, thigh, and finally his stomach. Satoshi, angry, said, "Open your eyes, Ito." "No, stop talking, open your eyes." Ito opened his eyes, and Satoshi threw away the bear paw, wanting to have a showdown with Ito. The two of them started punching each other. Ito jumped up but was caught by Satoshi, who threw him to the ground. After that, the two grappled. Ito ran up the wall, used momentum, and delivered a powerful punch to Satoshi's head. Both exhausted, sat on the ground leaning against the wall. At that moment, another group appeared, Sagara, the strategist of Akai school. He mocked Satoshi's miserable state. Satoshi ordered Sagara not to interfere. Sagara said, "How can someone like this be the boss of Akai school? Why not let someone else take over?" At this point, an internal conflict broke out within the Akai school. The members of Akai school wanted to kill Ito, but Satoshi stopped them. Satoshi believed that Real wasn't beaten by Ito, that it wasn't him who did it. I believe him. Sagara truly was despicable. He struck Satoshi with a club. Just like that, Akai school changed leaders. Sagara became a new boss. Sagara immediately ordered action against Nanzo. Akai school's formidable army marched toward Nanzo school. Very quickly, 100 thugs surrounded Nanzo school. Moreover, more people kept arriving as reinforcements. The leader stepped forward and shouted loudly, "Mitsuhashi and Ito, get out here." It looked like this was going to be a big fight. The teachers saw this and had no idea what was going on. One teacher suggested calling the police, but the principal had already said not to call the police for every little thing. If the police get involved, the number of students enrolling will drop. At this moment, Mitsuhashi was nowhere to be seen, and Ito went out alone to face them. Sagara told Ito that if he wanted all the students at Nanzo school to be safe, he had to pay a protection fee of 3 million yen. At that moment, Mitsuhashi appeared dressed as a swordsman, hit Sagara with a wooden sword. then grabbed Ito and Riko and ran off. Akai's men gave chase, mobilizing all their forces to catch Mitsuhashi and Ito. The two were pushed to their limits and had no choice but to go home to hide. At that moment, Kyoko and Akemi arrived. It turns out that someone has been using Mitsuhashi and Ito's names to ambush and rob students in the nearby area. On the way, they ran into a middle-aged man. The man loudly scolded the two of them. "You two have been extorting everyone on the street. Students threatening the elders here, really?" At that moment, the police, having been notified, arrived and took the two of them to the station. Fortunately, Riko and her father managed to catch the two imposters. Thanks to that, Mitsuhashi and Ito were no longer under suspicion. It turned out that Akai was behind all of this, trying to ruin the reputations of the two of them. But even so, students from Nanzo were still often bullied by Akai's gang after school. Some classmates even took the initiative to gather the full 3 million yen to pay the protection fee. Mitsuhashi and Ito were walking down the hallway when they suddenly ran into Sagawa. Sagawa said, "Here's the money. Let's just pay Akai's gang." Ito criticized Sagawa for having no shame, but Sagawa burst into tears. "Not every student at Nanzo is as strong as you two. Everyone has to live in fear every day. That's why they started collecting protection money." Mitsuhashi and Ito knew they couldn't keep putting up with this any longer. They had to go find Sagura and settle the score. First, Mitsuhashi went to find Imai, the boss on his side, to make Imai his top ally. At first, Imai didn't want to get involved at all, but Mitsuhashi used a clever trick to persuade him. The guys from Akai High said Imai was an idiot, couldn't even flirt with girls, not even as good as a cockroach. Hearing that, Imai was so angry, he almost flipped the table. Meanwhile, Sagawa went to pay the protection money, but the bag of money was snatched by the thugs from Akai High. But Sagura claimed he hadn't received the money yet, and on top of that, he beat Sagawa up and left him by the roadside. Just like that, Mitsuhashi, Ito, Imai, and Tanagawa, all four of them, headed to Akai High. They wanted to storm in and destroy the enemy's base. This was definitely going to be a battle that would go down in the school's history. Mitsuhashi came up with the battle plan. Ito, Imai, and Tanagawa, the three of them, would attack head-on. Meanwhile, Mitsuhashi would circle around to take on Sagura, the boss, one-on-one. At this point, the entire gang from Akai High was ready to face the enemy. They were blocking the whole street. As for Sagura, he was at the back of the crowd, sitting up high and looking down arrogantly. Seeing that Mitsuhashi didn't show up, he mocked Ito's group. "With so few people, you still dare to pick a fight?" Ito didn't waste words on him and immediately led his group to charge into the fray. Imai followed closely behind. Tanagawa was in charge of bringing up the rear. The situation was utter chaos. Ito, Imai, and Tanagawa fought with all their might, and in just a moment, they had taken down a dozen people. 6 guys from Akai High School pinned Ito against the wall. Ito couldn't move at all. Sagura smiled and said, "With just you guys, don't even dream of laying a finger on me." Imai rushed over, threw the thugs aside, and shouted, "Ito, go for it." Imai truly lived up to his reputation as the boss on their side. Every punch took down an opponent. Then he grabbed one in each hand and slammed them into the wall. Sagura asked Imai why he stepped in to help Nanzo's group. Imai said, "I just can't stand you arrogant, bossy types." Ito rushed forward a few meters, but was immediately pinned to the ground by 2 people. At that moment, a bald guy charged in, intending to hit Ito with a stick. At the critical moment, Riko arrived with people from Nanzo School. Riko is the school's disciplinary officer, exuding the aura of a true boss lady. Everyone jumped into the brawl, but since this was Akai School's turf, they still had the upper hand in numbers. Tanagawa was knocked out. Seeing this, Imai rushed over to help his junior. Tanagawa complained, wondering why Mitsuhashi still hadn't shown up. Could it be that he's too scared to come? Imai didn't believe it. How could that be? Mitsuhashi isn't that kind of person. That guy will come, and he'll definitely take down Sagura. Ito, standing nearby, heard Imai's words and was inspired, trying once more to charge at Sagura. But it wasn't that easy. There were still more than 30 people in front of him, and Ito was held back by 7 or 8 guys. Right at that moment, someone shouted, "We've caught Mitsuhashi." Oh no! Mitsuhashi was lying on the ground, being dragged inside by 2 thugs from Akai High, his face covered in blood. The people in the hallway immediately stopped fighting. Their boss had been caught, so there was no point in fighting anymore. The thugs from Akai High started laughing loudly. They dragged Mitsuhashi in front of Sagura. Sagura said, "We've already taken care of your boss. If you all just apologize and hand over your money, I'll let you go." Sagura jumped down and asked his men, "How did you manage to beat Mitsuhashi?" They replied, "We don't know who did this to him. When we found him, he was already lying in the hallway." Sagura immediately sensed that something was off. And right at that moment, Mitsuhashi suddenly jumped up. "You can't even tell the difference between blood and ketchup. You're still way too green, Sagura." Everyone around was completely shocked. Ito, Imai, Tanagawa, and Riko all smiled. When it comes to playing dirty, Mitsuhashi is the grandmaster compared to these guys. Mitsuhashi is just too strong. With just one punch, he was able to take Sagura down. The thugs from Akai didn't dare make a move. Mitsuhashi said, "Your boss passed out from just one punch for me. Anyone else want to fight?" Mitsuhashi took back the 3 million protection money, then led the Nanzo High crew back home. Before leaving, Mitsuhashi said, "From now on, I'm the strongest in Chiba." Ever since then, no one in Chiba could stand up to Mitsuhashi anymore. But those peaceful days only lasted for 2 weeks. Suddenly, Sagura came looking for Mitsuhashi. Turns out, Sagura had teamed up with Yakuza. Another fight was about to break out. Imai and Tanagawa were surrounded by 20 thugs. Imai could tell right away that something was off. These guys weren't just delinquent high schoolers, they were real gangsters. The leader of the thugs said, "We want to take care of everyone who attacked our queso last time." The fight broke out immediately. With every punch, Imai took someone down, then used all his strength to lift a guy up and slam him to the ground. Imai got kicked, but it didn't faze him at all. He grabbed one of the thugs and threw him out, knocking down several others in a row. Imai truly lived up to his reputation as the boss of Benny High. 20 thugs were nothing to him, and he didn't even get hurt. Imai and Tanagawa were about to leave when someone called out to them. A man about 2 meters tall stepped out. He was the boss of the Silver Dragon Gang. The fight was over in no time. Imai couldn't fight back at all and was immediately defeated. Imai's bones were broken, and just before he passed out, he thought of his good brothers, Mitsuhachi and Ito. Tanagawa took him to the hospital, then went to find Mitsuhachi and Ito, asking the two of them to avenge Imai, and even gave them 10,000 yen. Mitsuhachi immediately took the money. Riko and Ito scolded Mitsuhachi for doing that. Mitsuhachi was clever. He used 1,000 yen to buy a melon to visit Imai at the hospital. Unexpectedly, Imai was lying in bed, unable to move, bandaged all over. Mitsuhachi and Ito's expressions immediately changed. They were determined to avenge Imai. At night, this gang of Yakuza gathered more than a dozen even tougher thugs to ambush Ito. With Ito's personality, he would definitely fight them one-on-one, but this group worked together. Some held onto Ito to restrain him while the others beat him. Very quickly, Ito was injured, but he was the type who only got stronger the more he was beaten. Not long after, dozens of thugs were lying sprawled out on the ground, beaten. At that moment, Sagura from Arkeso and the boss of the Silver Dragon Gang showed up. It turned out that Sagura had previously been defeated by Mitsuhachi, which got him expelled from Arkeso school. So he asked the boss of the Silver Dragon Gang to let him handle all the Nanzo guys who had been causing trouble at his school, and this boss also had a grudge against Mitsuhachi and Ito. In episode 1, Mitsuhachi had dumped all their drugs, causing the boss to suffer heavy losses. The fight began. Ito charged, but was knocked down by a single punch from the Silver Dragon boss. Ito charged in. The boss used his left hand to attack and defend. Ito couldn't land a single hit on him. Then Ito was knocked down to the ground again. The boss mocked Ito, saying that his right hand was even more powerful, but he hadn't even needed to use it. He defeated Ito using only his left hand. This boss really is a tough guy. When he loses his temper, he even beats up his own men. He scolded his subordinates, saying even high schoolers could beat them. At that moment, when he turned his head, Ito threw a punch right at his face, but the boss of the Silver Dragon Gang just stood there, unmoving, only getting a bloody nose. After all these years without ever getting hurt, the boss got furious, kicked Ito away, then walked over and landed a heavy blow on him. At that moment, the police arrived, and Ito narrowly escaped disaster. Ito was taken to the hospital. He was injured all over but still fared better than Imai. Mitsuhachi saw his brothers being bullied. He was absolutely furious. The homeroom teacher brought other teachers from the school to protect Mitsuhachi. That night, Mitsuhachi used binoculars to observe the enemy situation, then secretly infiltrated the Silver Dragon Gang. He used glue to stick it onto the enemy's sword hilt. He also saw dozens of guns under the desk drawer. It seemed the gangsters really did have firearms. At that moment, members of the gang arrived, and Mitsuhachi was caught red-handed. Mitsuhachi remained unfazed, drew his weapon, and fought with the thugs. Just as he was fiercely fighting with his sword, the gang leader walked in. Mitsuhachi charged forward, wanting to attack the gang leader, but ended up with 7 guns pointed at him. Mitsuhachi suspected that the guns were fake. The leader of the Silver Dragon Gang immediately fired at a pillow nearby. The barrel of the gun was aimed straight at Mitsuhachi's head. The boss pulled the trigger, the gun empty. Mitsuhachi was scared witless. The Silver Dragon Gang under police surveillance, Mitsuhachi released. The next day, Ito, injured, was discharged from the hospital. He saw Mitsuhachi with black hair. Mitsuhachi announced that from today, he would no longer be a delinquent. He wanted to study hard to get into university. Ito thought Mitsuhachi was a coward. What kind of punk are you? Ito wanted to stop hanging out with Mitsuhachi. In the days that followed, Mitsuhachi took his studies seriously. In class, he listened attentively to lectures and answered the teacher's questions. At home, he practiced exam questions. On the Silver Dragon Gang side, ever since Mitsuhachi went there to cause trouble, strange things kept happening. This month, 3 members were robbed, their guns stolen each time. After Ito recovered, he went alone to settle the score with the Silver Dragon Gang. Before he went inside, Mitsuhachi called out to Ito. At this moment, Ito was still angry, so Mitsuhachi took off his wig to reveal his blonde hair. Meanwhile, the boss of the Silver Dragon Gang was furious because 2 more of his men had just been robbed of their guns. As he turned around, he saw Mitsuhachi and Ito making a dramatic entrance. Mitsuhachi was wearing a white suit, while Ito wore a pinstripe suit. Both of them had on sunglasses. Mitsuhachi told the boss of the Silver Dragon Gang that he was the one who had robbed his men. Turns out, Mitsuhachi hadn't forgotten about avenging his brothers. During the day, he acted like a bookworm so that no one would pay attention to him. At night, he took the initiative to weaken the Silver Dragon Gang's forces. The fight began and Mitsuhachi said that the boss had beaten Ito using his left hand, so he told him he'd also fight with his left hand. Mitsuhachi threw a powerful punch with his left hand, but the boss caught it. Right after that, Mitsuhachi started attacking with his right hand. The boss of the Silver Dragon Gang took several more punches to the face, then a few knee strikes as well. After that, Mitsuhachi jumped up and kicked him away with both legs. The boss fell to the ground. Mitsuhachi then followed up with a 720-degree spinning kick in midair. Smooth, swift moves. Weren't you to use only your left hand? The Silver Dragon boss lost his temper and started fighting seriously. But every move he threw was dodged by Mitsuhachi. Mitsuhachi struck the boss's leg with his elbow, then followed up with another kick that sent him sprawling. The boss wasn't having it. He got up and threw another punch. Mitsuhachi dodged it. He countered with a back kick, then followed up with a few more strikes. After that, the boss was knocked to the ground by one of Mitsuhashi's kicks. After being knocked down so many times by Mitsuhachi, it was obvious at a glance who was stronger and who was weaker. Mitsuhachi sat on the sofa, exuding the aura of a true boss. Mitsuhachi said to the Silver Dragon Gang boss, "My buddy Ito is even better than me. Last time when he fought you, he was just playing around. He didn't even go all out. He's a good guy." At that moment, the Silver Dragon boss pulled out a gun, threatening Mitsuhachi and Ito to surrender quickly. He wanted to save face for himself. Unexpectedly, while he wasn't paying attention, Mitsuhachi splashed something all over him. He sniffed it and realized it was kerosene. Mitsuhachi said, "Even if you fire your gun, you might not hit me, but the gunpowder will set your whole body on fire. If you're so tough, go ahead and shoot," he taunted. The boss didn't dare to fire and called Mitsuhachi cowardly. Mitsuhachi replied, "You've got a gun in your hand and you still call me a coward?" The boss of the Silver Dragon Gang had no choice but to throw his gun away. Mitsuhachi said he would hand over the stolen guns to the police. Mitsuhachi and Ito left victoriously. The boss collapsed to the ground. At that moment, Sagura walked in and said, "Thanks for taking care of Mitsuhachi and Ito. Now I'm the boss of Aichi again, and the Silver Dragon Gang is no longer of any use to me." With that, he threw a lighter at the Silver Dragon boss. Sagura began his true plan for revenge. His methods were extremely cruel. He kidnapped Mitsuhashi's girlfriend, Riko, and Ito's girlfriend, Kyoko, then wrote a challenge letter to Mitsuhashi and Ito, forcing them to come alone, without any underlings, and without bringing any weapons. Ito was never afraid of things like this, and went straight into the abandoned factory. Kyoko was tied up, and a thug holding a knife was about to slash her face. He threatened Ito, making him too scared to fight back. Ito was held back by 5 or 6 guys from Aichi. Ito got seriously beaten up in the next room. Sagura beat Mitsuhashi even more brutally. Mitsuhashi couldn't get up anymore and was dragged away by Sagura. Sagura handcuffed Mitsuhashi to an iron bar right in front of Riko. He slapped Mitsuhashi over and over, furiously. This kind of slapping might not cause much physical harm, but the psychological damage was immeasurable. Riko cried out in pain, but there was nothing she could do. Sagura brought the heated iron bar close to Riko's face. "If you don't come stop me, your girl is going to get burned." Mitsuhashi was furious. He said to Sagura, "If you're so tough, use your own strength. Is dirty tricks all you know? You filthy cockroach." Sagura got scolded, so he walked over and started hitting and cursing at Mitsuhashi. Turns out, Sagura was jealous of Mitsuhashi, who always looked like a fool but was better than anyone else. Sagura wanted to use an iron rod to burn Riko's face, making Riko back away in fear. Right at that moment, Mitsuhashi stood up. Oh man, Mitsuhashi tore off a big chunk of flesh just to get the handcuffs off. Mitsuhashi walked over to protect Riko. Sagura struck Mitsuhashi hard with the iron rod. Once, twice, 3 times, then 10 times. Even if Mitsuhashi's bones were as tough as if he'd been drinking Fami, he couldn't keep taking that kind of beating forever. Riko cried, The boy in front of her was actually using his own body to protect her. But Mitsuhashi still held back and spoke to Riko. Hang in there a little longer, he's definitely going to come. Seeing that Mitsuhashi refused to give in, Sagura started hitting even harder. Right at that moment, Sagura was sent flying by a blow and fell headfirst to the ground. Turning around to look, it was Ito who had hit him. Wasn't Ito getting beaten up in the other room? It turns out that Mitsuhashi and Ito, coming here empty-handed, had no chance of winning, so they told Akehi's former boss, Satoshi. Satoshi went to the abandoned warehouse, saw Kyoko tied up, and his underlings beating up Ito. Satoshi immediately understood and shouted loudly, "Hey, using a girl as a shield is not the way of the Akehis. Have you all thrown away the pride of the Akehis?" Satoshi shouted as he charged forward, then rushed into the group of Akehi's thugs and gave them a beating. With Satoshi's strength, no one could stand against him. Satoshi saved Ito, who then rushed to rescue Mitsuhashi. Ito, injured, fought Sagura one-on-one. Sagura was too weak, knocked out cold by Ito with a single blow. The four of them walked out of the warehouse. At that moment, their good brother Imai, carrying a heavy drum, came over and said he wanted to help them. These three were truly brothers. Satoshi found Sagura. He didn't blame Sagura. Satoshi sent Sagura far away. After all, they're about to graduate from high school. Fighting for the boss's position means nothing. In the end, Sagura finally understood, and the two of them decided to leave the underworld. 2 weeks later, Mitsuhashi and Ito, with nothing to do, lay on the rooftop sunbathing. They had truly become the strongest people in Chiba. But challengers kept coming one after another. At this point, the new boss of Akehi's, Kat Ori, wanted to challenge them. Meanwhile, at the neighboring Hawkeye High School, two exceptionally skilled delinquents were preparing to challenge all the schools in the Chiba area. Another great battle was about to break out. This was the biggest fight between schools yet. Hawkeye High School brought 100 fierce delinquents to Akehi's. Akehi's immediately prepared to face them. Both sides gathered in front of the school gate, ready for a brutal fight to break out. Hawkeye High School from the neighboring town was led by two bosses, one of whom was Utek, standing at 2 meters tall with unbeatable strength. In the past, he once fought 50 thugs all by himself. The other boss was named Yanagi, a cunning and devious man who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals, and was especially skilled with throwing knives. Rumor has it that no opponent has ever seen Yanagi's third knife. The Hawkeye group sent people to talk to Akehi's. Hawkeye's school burned down, so they came to Akehi's. They just want to borrow classrooms to study, not to cause trouble. After saying that, the boss led his whole group into Akehi's school. At this time, Akehi's didn't have a boss, like a snake that had lost its head. The previous bosses, Satoshi and Sagura, had left the underworld and moved to a quiet small town to work as laborers. The boss who came after them once brought people to Nanzo to stir up trouble, but was utterly defeated by Mitsuhashi and Ito. In the hallway, Utek and Yanagi were discussing things with each other. Previously, this remote place wasn't under Hawkeye's control. Now, they could use the pretense of borrowing the school to dominate the Chiba area. So, the first people they had to defeat were Mitsuhashi and Ito. A few thugs from Akehi's school were sent to challenge Yanagi and Utek. The result was that they got beaten up terribly. They took out a box filled with white balls attached to keychains. They told the people at Akehi's school, from now on, if you want to stay safe, each person has to pay 5,000 yen to buy this keychain as a protective charm. Moreover, they wanted to sell these keychains to every school in Chiba. Anyone who didn't buy one would get beaten up whenever they ran into them, and they'd keep beating until the person bought one. There was a thug from Akehi's who refused to buy one, and Yanagi kicked him unconscious. Even students just walking down the street were attacked by members of Hawkeye. Sagura came to inform Mitsuhashi and Ito, but Mitsuhashi wasn't scared at all and said, "Hawkeye? So what? Those little punks aren't even worth my attention. I've just invented a new move." As soon as he finished speaking, Mitsuhashi threw a firecracker on the ground. Sagura, terrified, jumped up and got kicked right in the family jewels by Mitsuhashi. That move was downright vicious. As the saying goes, enemies are bound to cross paths. That day, Utek brought his gang to bully Akehi's men in a small alley. At that moment, Mitsuhashi and Ito showed up, and one of Hawkeye's thugs made the first move. He picked someone up and threw them at the two of them. Mitsuhashi caught the person, spun around like a windmill, and then threw him back, knocking over the gangsters. The two of them found a bicycle and quickly made their escape. With all four legs pedaling together, they reached an unbelievable speed. Utek's gang ran so hard they almost coughed up blood, but still couldn't catch up. The new student at Nanzo School, Satoru, got beaten up by the Hawkeye gang because he didn't buy a keychain. Satoru told a teacher about it, but to his surprise, the teacher was also afraid of the Hawkeye gang. After leaving the office, Satoru got beaten up again. They even forced him to eat crumpled paper. At that moment, two girls, Kyoko, the boss of Siren School, and Okami arrived just in time to witness the scene. The two girls stepped in to defend the weak. Fighting 5 boys, the girls seemed fine. Kyoko's group used school bags as weapons, downed 3. Ito appeared. Kyoko changed attitude, sided with Ito, explaining they were heading to the train station, unaware of events. The beaten bald boy on the ground was about to protest, but Kyoko turned on him, scaring him senseless. After Kyoko left, Ito didn't say much. He just gave them a thorough beating. Then, while he was at it, he also saved Satoru. Satoru's cousin is a kendo master. After seeing her cousin get beaten up, she wanted to get revenge for him. But Satoru was afraid his cousin would get hurt, so he said it was Mitsuhashi who beat him up, because Mitsuhashi is really strong. He figured she might get scared and give up. Unexpectedly, the next day, she blocked Mitsuhashi's way. Mitsuhashi saw that she was a girl and thought she was a fan wanting an autograph. Right after that, Satoru's cousin drew her sword and slashed at Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi stepped back and dodged. Seeing things were going south, Mitsuhashi shouted for help and quickly ran to find Riko for assistance. Riko saw that Mitsuhashi was being misunderstood, so she stood in front of him. Satoru's cousin charged forward. Riko kicked the wooden sword and used her hand to block, then leaned her head back to dodge the attack. Riko grabbed the sword and restrained Satoru's cousin. After breaking free, she rushed at Mitsuhashi again. Mitsuhashi was careless and couldn't dodge, getting stabbed. Mitsuhashi immediately cried and made a scene. Riko threw a smoke bomb and took Mitsuhashi away. Satoru's cousin went looking for Mitsuhashi, and at the bookstore, seeing Imai, she asked where Mitsuhashi was. As soon as Imai saw a pretty girl, he got excited and gaped, instantly selling out his best friend. Imai took Satoru's cousin to find Mitsuhashi. Mitsuhashi's mind started racing immediately, saying that Imai did that just to hit on her. Hearing that, she got furious, raised her sword, and smacked Imai right on the head, then turned around and walked away. Seeing Imai knocked out by a girl, Mitsuhashi started mocking him. Meanwhile, at school, Satoru was being bullied again. He was cornered in the bathroom, then had cold water poured over his head. At that moment, Yanagi and Otek showed up, kindly offered a helping hand, and even enthusiastically took Satoru home. This whole scene was witnessed by Mitsuhashi and Ito. Mitsuhashi realized that Satoru had falsely accused him, saying that he had hit him. The next day, Ito went to find Satoru to clear things up about Mitsuhashi. At that moment, Otek appeared and punched Ito right in the face. Ito kept getting attacked over and over. He didn't want to fight back, but at this point, he had no other choice. Ito stood up, swung his fist, but his opponent caught his arm, then landed another punch. Otek shoved Ito's head into an oil drum. Is this really the strongest guy in Chiba? Suddenly, Ito broke free, and both sides threw punches. Otek took a hit but was still fine. He grabbed Ito by the head and kept hitting him. Satoru, afraid someone would get killed if the fight went on, shouted, "The police are coming." Otek had no choice but to run off first. Ito got up and went out to look, but there weren't any police at all. It turned out Satoru was helping him. Ito took his bruised and battered body to school. On the surface, Mitsuhashi mocked him, but inside, he was furious and couldn't stand it. He wanted to get revenge for Ito. Meanwhile, the gang from Akai's High couldn't stand being bullied by Hokiai, so they sent someone to lure Yanagi to the warehouse. Yanagi and his 2 friends were surrounded by 20 Akai's guys, but unexpectedly, he stayed completely calm and even laughed loudly, mocking them. "You guys are just asking for trouble." After saying that, he pulled out a knife and charged forward, stabbing it into the arm of one of the thugs. The Akai's thugs were immediately terrified. Yanagi pressed at advantage, his daggers striking everywhere. Their fight happened to be seen by Mitsuhashi and Ito from outside. Mitsuhashi was scared out of his wits. This Yanagi guy is no joke. Luckily, an old lady passing by saw what happened and called the police. Yanagi injured people with a knife, so he should have been arrested, but he and Otek forced Satoru to go to the police station and take the blame instead. Satoru, still clueless, thought Yanagi and Otek were good people. On the police side, they investigated and found out that Satoru wasn't the one who did it. When Satoru left the police station, Mitsuhashi and Riko saw him. Mitsuhashi grabbed a broom and started furiously sweeping at Satoru's feet. Serves him right for falsely accusing Mitsuhashi of hitting him. At that moment, Tanagawa came running in a panic to ask Mitsuhashi for help, urging him to quickly go save Imai and Satoru's little sister. Turns out, Satoru's sister found out Yanagi dragged her brother to the police station to take the fall for him, a cowardly move. She charged forward, swinging her sword, but Yanagi stomped on it. She kept swinging her sword to attack, but her fighting skills were poor. Yanagi caught her wooden sword and slapped her. She spun like a record. Imai happened to walk by and saw the whole scene. Yanagi kicked Satoru's sister, sending her tumbling to the ground. Seeing this, Imai rushed in to fight them hand to hand. A few thugs grabbed Imai and started beating him, while the other 2 went over to bully Satoru's sister. Imai rushed over and shoved the 2 thugs, knocking them to the ground. But in the end, Imai couldn't stand up to so many of them and got beaten up badly. Imai was incredibly gallant. Even while being beaten, he risked himself to protect Satoru's sister. Group punched and kicked. Seeing this, Satoru's sister was deeply moved. Mikahashi with a broom. Mikahashi fought using a broom. After all, a broom can be considered a kind of weapon. He easily defeated the thugs. In less than 2 minutes, they were all taken down. Riko, Tanagawa, and Satoru also quickly arrived at the scene. Satoru helped his cousin up, and only then did he realize he had been used by Yanagi. Just then, the police arrived, and Yanagi's group hurriedly fled. At that moment, a group of people appeared. It turned out to be Akai's former bosses, Satoshi and Sagura. It turned out that after Sagura was defeated by Mikahashi and Ito, Satoshi took Sagura to work in a remote place. Since Akai's had been bullied by Hokiai for so long, the two underlings came to beg the two bosses to return to the underworld. Satoshi and Sagura told Mikahashi that they wanted to personally deal with the Hokiai gang and asked Mikahashi not to get involved. That very afternoon, Hokiai received a challenge letter from Akai's. Akai's wanted to have a life-or-death duel with Hokiai. Ito didn't like the Hokiai gang either, so he decided to join the fight as well. But Mikahashi said he was afraid of sword fights, so for now he wouldn't be joining. At 10 a.m. the next day, both sides gathered at an abandoned warehouse. The return of Satoshi and Sagura boosted Akai's morale. A battle between the two schools, involving hundreds of people, was about to break out. At that moment, Ito appeared. He wanted to help Akai's school deal with the Hokiai gang. Yanagi had Satoru dragged out. Satoru had been badly beaten. Yanagi warned everyone that this was the fate of those who went up against Hokiai. The fight began. Akai's forces charged in first. The Hokiai group immediately met them head-on. Satoshi leaped up and took down one guy with a kick, then locked another in a headlock and threw him backward. Sagura, right beside him, was just as fierce. Every kick he threw took down an opponent. Ito fought even more enthusiastically, taking out 3 guys in a row. The Hokiai side wasn't backing down either. Yanagi grabbed one of Akai's men and headbutted him. Otek was even more ruthless, lifting a guy up and slamming him down onto the floor. Then, he kicked another one away, turning the whole warehouse into chaos. Satoshi shouted, "For the honor of Akai's, we must win this fight." At that moment, Hokiai's side had the advantage in numbers. 4 or 5 people surrounded Satoshi. Sagura was also fighting 2 or 3 people on his own. The Ito side had to try even harder, but the other thugs from Akai's weren't much good at fighting. Overall, Akai's was at a disadvantage. Right at that critical moment, people from Nanzo arrived. This group was led by Riko. Riko is the disciplinary committee member at Nanzo School and also Akasaka's daughter. She knows karate, so you could say she's someone with both presence and skill. At this point, the scene became even more chaotic. Nanzo came to help Akai's, and the situation immediately returned to a stalemate. On this side, Sagura faced off against Yanagi. Both of them were pretty despicable people. Sagura used a flurry of kicks, forcing Yanagi to keep retreating. Yanagi threw a punch, but Sagura dodged it. Sagura landed a punch right on Yanagi's face, then went for a kick, but Yanagi managed to catch it. Sagura lost his balance, fell to the ground, and then threw a backward kick. But Sagura's stamina was already depleted. For now, neither of the two could gain the upper hand. Meanwhile, Satoshi faced off against Otek. Both of them were strong fighters. Satoshi landed the first hit on Otek. Otek grabbed Satoshi's arm, then delivered a blow that forced Satoshi to step back. Otek locked Satoshi in a chokehold. Satoshi mustered strength, throwing him backward. He went berserk, shouting, "I cannot lose." He shoved Otaki, crashing through 2 walls, his strength unbeatable. Otaki barely broke free, then kicked Satoshi away. By the time Satoshi got up, Otaki had run away. Satoshi then started fighting the other thugs again. Otaki was scared now. He abandoned his gang and ran alone to the warehouse next door, but was found by Ito. Last time, he beat Ito so badly. This time, Ito was out for revenge. Otaki mocked Ito for being a loser. The two of them immediately started fighting. Ito got hit twice again. Angry, Ito decided to use his ultimate move. He gathered momentum and landed a punch right on Otaki's chin. Oh my god. Otaki was sent flying 5 meters by the blow. Ito walked up and stomped down with his foot. He could have stomped on his head like smashing a watermelon and ended him, but Ito still decided to spare him. Meanwhile, the two sides were still fiercely fighting. Akeshi's men and Hawkeye's men were evenly matched, with no clear winner. Yanagi faced off against Sagura. He pulled out a knife, the blade grazing the top of Sagura's head. Then, he continued his attack. Sagura got slashed on the arm. Yanagi said, "I'm going to the police station anyway, so killing one more doesn't matter to me." Right at that moment, Michihashi jumped down from above. He had arrived at the scene. Ito also dragged Otaki over. At that moment, everyone stopped fighting. The boss has already been taken down. So, what's the point of fighting anymore? On the Hawkeye side, only Yanagi refused to give up. He wanted to keep fighting. At that moment, Michihashi pulled out a ping pong paddle. Michihashi said, "If you think you can beat me with a knife, I'll wait another 10,000 years for that." Yanagi retorted, "As long as I have a knife, I'm unbeatable." Yanagi immediately pulled out a knife and threw it, but Michihashi blocked it with his paddle. Yanagi was shocked. How is that possible? Yanagi pulled out 3 more knives, but Michihashi blocked them all. With his special move no longer working, Yanagi pulled out his last knife and threw it at Michihashi. Michihashi simply used his paddle to smack the knife right back. The knife grazed Yanagi's hair as it flew by. Taking advantage of the moment, Michihashi charged forward. With a single move, he punched Yanagi, sending him flying 10 meters away. Yanagi passed out on the spot. Michihashi shouted, "I won't let any of you lay a finger on my friends." Ito, Riko, and Sagara all smiled. Sagara said, "That Michihashi kid really knows how to fish in troubled waters." The battle ended, and Hawkeye's ambition to take over the Chiba area was shattered. Michihashi and Ito became the strongest group in Chiba. At that moment, the sound of police sirens rang out. Michihashi hurriedly ran away. It turned out that the teachers from Nanzo School were walking toward the warehouse, holding toy police cars and loudspeakers. After this battle, the reputation of Michihashi and Ito became even more prominent. Michihashi's group went to the hospital to visit Imai. At that moment, Satoru's younger sister was taking care of Imai. Finally, Imai got himself a girlfriend. Michihashi was extremely jealous and threw a banana at Imai. On Akashi's side, Sagara and Satoshi said goodbye to their juniors. The two of them had to go back to work. Satoshi told the juniors to protect Akashi's honor. On the other side, while walking down the street, Kyoko came to meet Ito. The two of them started flirting right in the middle of the street. Riko saw Michihashi nearby and started to get jealous. Well then, who doesn't have a lover, right? Michihashi and Riko ran away from the other two. In the blink of an eye, Michihashi's group was about to graduate. At the high school graduation ceremony, there was an extremely special performance. Michihashi and Ito were the lead singers. Riko and Kyoko danced backup, while Imai played the drums and Akemi and Tanagawa played instruments. Everyone had a great time playing and having fun. Below the stage, Michihashi's juniors kept cheering them on. His close friends Satoshi and Sagara were also there. There were also the teachers from Nanzo High, Michihashi's parents, Riko's father, and so on. Everyone was present. Michihashi and Ito had a lot of supporters. These two best friends are sure to be happy and joyful for the rest of their lives. And with that, the entire story of the film, The Perfect Duo, comes to an end. Today's question: if a perfect movie is worth 100 points, how many points would you give The Perfect Duo? Please leave your answer in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you next time.